Hello everyone, in this video we are going to talk about Animal Crossing atmosphere and about skinning animals. It's gonna be a fun one. Yeah, so as I mentioned today I want to talk to you guys about Animal Crossing New Horizons and why it also kind of makes me scared a bit for the future of Animal Crossing. New Horizons came out about a year ago, and when I first got the game, I was really excited for it. I was really hyped. We had not gotten an Animal Crossing game for a very long time. The first day I played the game, I was really excited. I was really feeling good. Yes, this feels like Animal Crossing. But the more and more I played it, that feeling started to fade away, and I wasn't enjoying myself quite as much. At first, I kind of thought that it would be kind of like the Splatoon 2 situation where it kind of felt lacking when I first opened the game and played it, but going on, it would get a lot of like content updates and a lot of meaty new features, but that didn't happen. And now that a year has passed, I still actually feel the same about the game. So, what's really wrong with the game? A lot of other people, these being like very hardcore Animal Crossing fans, also do not appreciate Animal Crossing New Horizons as much as the prior games. They do not consider New Horizons as their favorite in the series, and there are quite a lot of reasons for this. The lack of content, the lack of long term goals, the lack of returning characters, and so on and so on. But my problem with New Horizons is that it actually feels too much like a game. Why is this exactly a problem, you might ask yourself? And why is it bad? And what do you mean by this? I'm glad if you asked those questions. Those are really good questions, and I will try to cover all of those in this video. The biggest thing that is missing for me is that it feels a bit too much like a game, and it lacks this atmosphere and it lacks this level of charm that the previous games used to have. Of course, New Horizons does have a lot of charm of itself, but it's not enough, and it's not this specific type of atmosphere that I am missing from this game. Now, let me continue with a few small features that make me think that the game is lacking charm. First of these is your hair. Now, in prior games, you changed your haircut by going to Shampoodle, a barbershop owned by a poodle named Harriet, and you would have to talk to her as you do to a barbershop usually. They talk a lot, and I do not like it. I'm a very introverted person. But in this game, you would talk to her, and she would kind of decide your haircut on the answers that you gave her. And that was a really quirky, fun feature that Animal Crossing New Leaf had. But in New Horizons, this is gone. This feature is no longer. You can still, change your haircut, and you have a bigger variety of hairstyles and hair colors, which I do think is great. But how you change your hair is done via a mirror item. And when you just talk to a mirror, you get a menu, and then you can choose whatever you want. And that's it. It's more convenient, but it does lack charm. Other thing is that I think New Horizons gives you a bit too much control. You can easily choose your villages. You can easily choose how your island look. And I think it's made a bit too easy, and I did prefer having a random cast of villagers in previous games. This is because if you already like everyone, it gets boring quickly. But if you have those nasty, evil villagers, really, that you just want to get rid of and they just don't leave, it creates stories, and you get more of an emotional connection when you know that you are not deciding who leaves and who stays, but it's random. Your favorite villager that has been there since the beginning might just be gone one day. And that's why you create more of an emotional connection to your villagers. That said, the villagers in New Horizons also have a lot less things to do and a lot less things to say. So they do repeat themselves quite a bit more. So that's also why people have less of an emotional connection to them. And the island landshaping, it's just a bit too unrealistic for what I want from Animal Crossing. It really does seem like a battle between charm versus convenience. And this is not the only game that has done this. Another example of this charm versus convenience talk is Red Dead Redemption 2. You might not be familiar with this game. It's a huge game, but I do realize it's not really in the same target demographic as Animal Crossing. Basically, Red Dead 2 is a open world game about the Wild West. When Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, it was criticized a bit for being a bit too slow and it taking such a long time to get anywhere. And it had a lot of animations to make the game feel more realistic. And one of these animations was when you went hunting for animals and you needed some material for them, let's say fur or meat, you would actually see like an animation of the character skinning the animal to get the material instead of just like going to the animal and pressing like the A button or the Y button. This is done for immersion. When the game is slow and when it shows you everything, you start to believe the world is more real. And when you're just riding on your horse for a long time, you just start to take in the world more. You start to appreciate the environment more. In this case, they made the game slower deliberately to just increase the charm instead of the convenience and thus increasing the level of immersion that players feel when they are playing the game. But yeah, as I said, that's not really the best example and not really the most inappropriate as talked about skinning animals. So another example of this is the Nintendo Switch menu, which is very bare and very kind of boring looking. At least compared to like the Wii U and 3DS menus, which have a lot more character and a lot more fun things to discover about them. But I do understand why they went with more convenience instead of charm with the Switch menu, because it just makes the experience of using the game console just so much more fluid and so much more faster than so the charm doesn't really matter in that case. But moving back to Animal Crossing New Horizons, one of the biggest things I think missing from this charm, what Animal Crossing used to have, is the premise of the game. When Nintendo was making the first Animal Crossing, the idea of the game was based on this developer's experience of moving away from his hometown to work for Nintendo in Tokyo. And if you have ever moved in your life, you know how that feels. It can be exciting, it can be liberating, but it can also be very scary, very daunting. And when you go to this new place, there's a lot of people, you don't even know what's going on. It might be a different culture there. These are the emotions that Nintendo wanted to invoke with the first Animal Crossing games, and this is what is kind of missing from New Horizons. Moving away is relatable. We have all experienced it, or maybe even fantasize about just leaving everything behind and moving somewhere brand new, starting life all over again. But what New Horizons does is that the premise is all about a getaway package and moving to a deserted island, which does not really click with people as much as the fantasy of leaving everything behind and moving somewhere. You don't just go one day and decide to, I would just grab my private plane and move to a deserted island and start up a new society there. That's not something people can relate to. But if you want me to make another video on this where you give me a bunch of money and I live on a deserted island for a few months, I'm up for it. Definitely. Just, give me lots of money. I would definitely do that. Yeah. But yeah, what I think that they should have done with this idea of like a tropical location was not to have a getaway package, but invoke a different kind of emotion that people can relate to more, and that is going on a vacation. Sure, I think New Horizons does this a bit, but it's not enough. They do not fully commit with this, and I think most of the flaw is just the idea of the getaway package, and it's just first it's an island and suddenly it's a city. That's not really relatable. So I would definitely go in more with the vacation thing. And I was planning it a bit, so I will tell you my plans for how I would have done New Horizons now. When you would first come to this island, in this my imagining of New Horizons, you would start in a small island that does have some population already. It's not completely deserted like in New Horizons. And instead of like residential services, you would have like a hotel owned by Tom Nook that it's a bit rundown, it's not very successful yet, but it will be later on in the game, of course. You would talk to Tom Nook and you would get a hotel room instead of like a campsite. After living a while on the island, you could be able to upgrade the hotel room to your own like private home or a small cool cabin that you could live in. And then, of course, the traditional upgrading of the houses and stuff would happen. And what you would do on the island is that you would just meet the locals, help with the hotel. The hotel would have like 5 villagers visiting every day or so, and then you could talk to them and maybe befriend them and get to leave them on your island, and then they would leave much more easily. There would be a much more quicker transition of villagers living there, but it would be much more of a vacation spot and it would invoke the feelings of going on vacation. It would be your own vacation paradise that you would always go to. Nook's Cranny could be like a souvenir shop, Brewster's, which should return in the actual New Horizons 2, could be like a beach bar, and as I said, like the residential services could be replaced by a hotel or even like a main office, and the hotel would be a separate building. Then, when you work for the resort and for Tom Nook, then you would eventually get like a manager position, and then you would like unlock the landscaping. It would be done with a map, and then the all of the changes would like happen overnight, just like all of the buildings get somehow erected overnight. Mr. Nook has magical powers. I do not know of them. They are very cool. They are very Animal Crossing. They have always been there. So it would be fun if the all of the landscaping changes, like having the rivers change and erecting mountains would all happen also overnight. That would be fun to see. But yeah, those are my thoughts for the Animal Crossing New Horizons game. And I am a bit worried that they will continue this trend of prioritizing convenience over charm, because the previous games used to be full of charm and full of this atmosphere. The games used to make you like feel nostalgic for a time you never had or a time that you would like to have, of this fantasy of moving away and leaving everything behind. But yeah, New Horizons does not do that, and I do hope the next games in the series get more atmospheric, more emotional about it. What do you guys think? Did you love New Horizons? Have you tried the other games in the series? Did you think that there was something missing in the latest edition of the Animal Crossing series, New Horizons, there? And what would you do differently? What did you think was missing? Let me know down below in the comments, but please remember to like and subscribe, hit the bell, and have a good night. Bye.